They tried to mess with the new teacher. Her Taekwondo. Black belt obliterated their power. Are you seriously going to sit there and pretend none of this is your fault? Madison Carter's voice rang out cold and unyielding as she stood in room 212 of Jefferson High. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered, casting long shadows across the rows of empty desks, and at that moment, it felt like the entire school was holding its breath. Madison had walked into her first day teaching under the weight of more expectations than she ever thought possible. A biracial former college basketball star turned English teacher, she carried the legacy of her family's fight for justice and the scars of every time she let her guard down. As she crossed the threshold of her classroom that morning, she'd paused at the doorway to listen. Faint laughter, the scrape of a chair, the telltale snap of a text message, and she knew exactly who was back there waiting. In the back row sat Ethan Walker, the privileged entitled golden boy who'd terrorized Jefferson High for 2 grueling years. Flanked by his cronies Luke Thompson, whose sneer rivaled Ethan's own, and Sam Patel, the master hacker, Ethan leaned back in his chair, scrolling through Instagram. The hourglass on her desk, a gift from Master Kim, symbolizing time, slipping away from systems that protect the powerful, sat half-empty grains of sand trickling down in silent indictment. Madison's pulse raced as she stared down at that hourglass. Every grain that fell reminded her that patience was a weapon, one that fueled her inner steel. "Good morning," she began, without breaking eye contact, her tone steady. "You must be Ethan Walker. I heard you're the reason the last 3 substitute teachers ran for the hills." The class tittered. Ethan's pale blue eyes narrowed, and he pushed himself upright, as if daring her to continue. She stepped forward, the worn basketball keychain in her pocket pressing into her palm, a quiet symbol of every challenge she'd overcome on the court and off. "I want you to know, this classroom is a safe space to share ideas, but it's not a playground for your arrogance." Ethan laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally in the near-empty room. "Safe space. What is this, kindergarten? Why don't you teach something real?" He drummed his fingers on the desk, leaning forward, his gold watch catching the light. Madison's jaw tightened. A memory flashed, her mother telling her, "True strength is knowing when to stand and when to yield." She allowed a flicker of warmth into her eyes. "Real strength," she said quietly, "comes from standing up for what's right, even when you're terrified." Silence crashed over them. In that moment, Madison felt the full weight of her risk one wrong move, and Ethan's powerful father could bury her career. But she also felt the hourglass shift beneath her fingers, as if time itself was giving her the green light. Just then, a soft ping announced Jasmine Lee's message to the student newspaper's private feed live stream ready. Madison swallowed. The game had changed. As Ethan's smirk wavered, the room felt impossibly still, like the calm before a storm that no one saw coming. And Madison knew this was only the beginning. "Don't pretend you didn't just threaten me." Madison Carter hissed, her voice low, but fierce, as she watched Ethan Walker lean back in his chair, lips curling into a snarl. The hush in room 212 felt suffocating. Every student's eyes were glued to the unfolding drama. Madison's heart hammered in her chest, not from fear, but from the electric charge of standing up to a boy who'd built his empire on intimidation. She clutched the hourglass on her desk, its fine sand trickling down, a reminder that even the most entrenched power structures would one day run out of time. Just yesterday, Madison had walked these halls as a newcomer, her identity a curious blur, biracial former college athlete, now an English teacher determined to reshape a toxic culture. She'd planted that hourglass, and the small frame photo of Master Kim, intentionally, with each grain that fell, she sent a signal to the bullies and to herself. Patience is justice. But patience didn't mean passivity. As Ethan's circle, Luke Thompson and Sam Patel, shifted in their seats, Madison remembered her mother's words. Pressure forges diamonds. Every sneer and mocking glance was shaping her resolve. Ethan's fist slammed against the desk. "You think you can keep me in line with buzzwords and motivational quotes." He sneered, glancing disdainfully at the succulent justice bloom on her windowsill, a silent emblem of growth even in concrete. Madison felt that succulent's resilience echo in her veins. In a single breath, she decided this was the moment to show that discipline was more than empty rhetoric. She stepped forward, tone unwavering. I didn't come here to win your approval. I came to teach courage, yours and everyone else's. If you refuse to learn, you'll be the one left behind. A ripple of tension spread through the room as Jasmine Lee's phone camera discreetly started recording for the student newspaper's live feed. Madison felt the eyes of the entire school might soon rest on her next move. She raised her hand not to strike, but to point at that hourglass. This class operates on a simple principle: time's up for those who harm others. The sand paused mid-fall as if frozen by her conviction. Ethan's face darkened. He spat out, "You'd really post that online?" "Ruin me." There was risk in that question. His father's influence could bury her career in minutes. At that precise moment, a hush fell as Amina Hassan, the school's digital rights activist, tapped into the live feed and dropped a bombshell link in the group chat. "Watch the proof, your threats, your pranks, all stored here." The room's collective breath hitched. Madison's strategic gamble had paid off. She'd already uploaded clips of their malicious behavior to a secure server accessible through Amina's link. Suddenly, the so-called untouchable kingpin of Jefferson High found himself exposed to the entire student body and faculty. Silence stretched taut. The fluorescent lights flickered, and Madison could almost feel the shift in the air, as if the walls themselves were acknowledging a new order. Ethan's bravado crumbled into uncertainty, and the students leaned forward, phones raised, ready to share. Madison let that moment linger, knowing that the true lesson about power, accountability, and inner strength was only just beginning. And with every eye in the room fixed on her, she whispered, "Class dismissed." But the real test was about to start. "Why would you post our worst moments for everyone to see?" Ethan Walker's voice cracked, barely hiding fear, as his classmates' phones pinged with notifications. Madison Carter didn't flinch. She knew that exposing the truth carried enormous risk. Ethan's father could sue, smear her name, even leverage political connections to have her dismissed. But, as the hourglass on her desk clicked, the last grain through, she felt a calm certainty wash over her. Time was on her side. Moments earlier, the live link had spread like wildfire clips of Ethan organizing pranks. Sam Patel hacking into grade spreadsheets, Luke Thompson's taunts when they superglued desks shut. Each snippet played on a loop accompanied by Amina Hassan's moderated commentary, highlighting how privilege and power often shield abusers from consequences. Madison had spent nights framing and uploading these files to a secure server, ready for a single trigger. Now that trigger was pulled, and the walls of silence and fear began to crumble. A hush fell over room 212. Even the fluorescent lights overhead seemed to dim in solidarity. Madison stepped forward, her polished heels clicking against linoleum like a metronome of justice. She picked up the small succulent on her windowsill, the one labeled Justice Bloom, and held it aloft. "This plant survives in the harshest conditions," she said, voice steady. "It reminds me that life and courage can flourish anywhere, even under concrete." The students leaned in, many nodding. For the first time, they saw beyond Ethan's smirk and realized they held collective power. Ethan's eyes darted to the clock. Every second felt magnified, like the grain of sand in the paused hourglass. He stood, voice trembling. "You can't do this. My dad will bury you." Madison allowed a momentary flicker of doubt, then she reached into her pocket and withdrew a folded envelope, the list of documentation she'd sent to the district attorney, complete with witness statements from Jessica Park, Sophia Johnson, and David Morales. "I did," she replied softly, "and they're already reviewing it." That single line shattered the last vestige of Ethan's composure. Luke and Sam exchanged fearful glances. As Ethan sank back into his chair, defeat washed across his face. Madison felt a surge of compassion for him and for every student shackled by the same fear. She placed the succulent back on the sill, its tiny leaves glowing green in the fluorescent gloom. It was a symbol of resilience, of justice, born from patience and care. The school's private news feed exploded outside that room's walls. Teachers peeked into the hallway, their own past frustrations echoing in Madison's courage. In the distance, Principal Ramirez's office lights flickered. Decisions were being made. Madison leaned against her desk, heart-pounding sweat beating at her temple. She had risked everything, her career, her reputation, to dismantle a system built on privilege and intimidation. But as the final clip faded and the hourglass remained empty, she realized the true battle had only just begun. And as the ambulance's quiet silence settled, Madison whispered to herself, "This is how change starts." "Do you really think you can turn the whole school against me?" Ethan Walker's voice crackled through the classroom door as he and his father leaned into the corridor, storming out of room 212. Madison Carter didn't flinch. She watched their retreating figures, her pulse steady, though every fiber of her being felt the weight of what was to come. The student newspaper's live feed still hummed on a loop behind her phones, in 30 hands recording every second. The hourglass lay empty on her desk, a trophy of victory, but also a warning time does not pause for injustice. Within the hour, the hallways buzzed. Teachers peeked through glass panes, whispers rippling like static electricity. Some offered nods of solidarity. Others looked away, eyes betraying fear of retribution from the powerful Walker family. Madison felt the atmosphere shift from dread to cautious hope, but she knew a single lawsuit threat could freeze everything. She tapped her smartphone. Amina Hassan's message blinked an invitation. Board meeting starts in 5. The sacrifice she'd made was about to be tested at the next level. Madison buttoned her navy blazer and slipped into the corridor. She passed the mural in the main lobby, a collage of past graduates, athletes, and valedictorians. At the center was a cracked hourglass, painted in bold strokes, vines of ivy creeping around its base. That mural had once symbolized Jefferson High's pride. Now it felt prophetic. She entered the boardroom where Principal Ramirez stood, alongside 3 school board members and Mrs. Walker Ethan's mother, arms crossed like a general ready for battle. The air was thick with expectation. Ms. Carter began. Mr. Alvarez, the chair of the board, voice measured. "We've reviewed the footage. Parents are concerned. The Walkers demand an apology or legal action." Madison inhaled. The stakes had never been higher. Her teaching credential, her career in this district, even her personal safety could hinge on the next words. She drew a deep breath, feeling the echo of Master Kim's mantra, "Stand true to your spirit." With that inner calm, she met their gaze. "I will not apologize for doing my job, protecting students, and upholding justice. If you want to discuss my methods, let's talk policy. But if you pursue legal threats, I have documentation of a decades-old cover-up you'll regret bringing to light." Murmurs rippled around the table. Mrs. Walker's face tightened. The board members exchanged glances. Madison reached into her bag, retrieved a slim file, emails between the district and a former coach accused of misconduct 2 decades ago. Emails silenced by hush payments from the same families who fund the school's endowment. She placed the file on the table. "I believe you'll find this relevant," she said quietly. The board chair's hands trembled as he flipped through pages. In that moment, she realized that true power lay not in physical confrontation, but in exposing corruption cloaked by privilege. As the boardroom fell silent, Madison's phone vibrated. Jasmine Lee's feed had gone viral. Students in the cafeteria chanting "Justice Bloom," a phrase borrowed from the succulent on Madison's windowsill. The board chair cleared his throat voice, now unsteady. "Ms. Carter, perhaps there's a way forward, under certain conditions." She nodded, eyes unwavering. "I'll cooperate with policy review, but I won't sacrifice safety for appearances." They agreed tentatively to launch an independent investigation into past cover-ups and to protect Madison from retaliatory discipline. Outside, the hallway erupted. Students high-fived her as she walked by. Some teared up in gratitude. Yet Madison felt a sudden pang of unease. She'd won this battle, but a larger war was just beginning. The mural above her glowed in the afternoon sun, ivy creeping slowly up its cracked hourglass. She placed a hand over her heart, feeling the same quiet conviction she'd first summoned in that classroom. Tomorrow she would return to room 212, not as the trembling outsider, but as the catalyst for change. But as she rounded the corner, her phone buzzed with an anonymous tip. "There's another meeting tonight, secret. You're not safe." Madison slowed, breath-catching. The walls of Jefferson High had ears, and not all of them were loyal. Her victory had lit a fire, but fires can burn both light and shadow, and in that moment she realized true courage meant being ready to face both. "Why is there a secret meeting tonight?" Madison Carter whispered to herself as she pressed her back against the cold locker heart, hammering like a war drum. The corridors of Jefferson High were empty now, but the tension felt palpable, as if the very walls were conspiring against her. She clutched her worn basketball keychain in one hand and the succulent justice bloom in the other, its green leaves surprisingly sturdy under her grip. Tonight, she wasn't just a teacher. She was a guardian of truth, walking a razor's edge between exposure and retaliation. Earlier that day, Amina Hassan had tipped her off a small group of board members and parent donors were gathering after hours in the old media room, the same space where the student newspaper was born. Rumor was they planned to discuss how to quietly discredit Madison using the Walker family's influence to rewrite policy and force her resignation. As the sun dipped below the Denver skyline, shadows lengthened across the brick facade, and Madison knew every second counted. She navigated the dimly lit hallways, flashlight app flickering on her phone, each beam of light slicing the darkness like a blade of justice. When she reached the heavy double doors of the media room, Madison paused. The antique hourglass painted on the glass, part of a commemorative mural, seemed almost alive, its sands frozen mid-flow, as though warning her time is a brittle ally. She steadied herself, drawing on the inner calm Master Kim had instilled in her during countless early morning sparring sessions. With an inconspicuous twist of her hand, she released the succulent's planter, a secret tracker that would livestream everything back to Amina's feed. This was her educated gamble, expose their machinations in real time, and the court of public opinion would be unstoppable. Inside, the low murmur of voices confirmed her fears. Principal Ramirez sat at a long table with Mr. Alvarez, Mrs. Walker, and two board members, each face etched with unease, illuminated by a single overhead lamp. Madison watched as they slid confidential documents across the table drafts of a forced policy change, a plan to reassign her to a satellite campus, even a letter drafted by Mr. Walker threatening legal action for defamation. The arrogance in their posture stung her pride, but it only fueled her resolve. She eased the door further and slipped in carrying only the succulent against her side. A cough, intentional and sharp, silenced the room. All heads turned, jaws dropping at the sight of Madison in the doorway, the justice bloom in hand and flame of conviction in her eyes. "Surprised to see me?" she asked, voice echoing off the walls. "I thought you might want to review these with the student body." With that, her phone vibrated a notification live next to Amina's name. The screen on the wall, the board's own projector, blazed to life, projecting the media room's live stream to a hallway of curious onlookers pressed against the glass. Gasps filled the room as parents, teachers, and students watched every incriminating document scroll across the screen. In that moment, Madison felt the power shift beneath her feet. No longer alone, she stood surrounded by a community awakened to injustice. But as she stepped forward, every eye burning into her, she realized that exposing the truth was only the opening salvo. The true challenge, reforming a system built on privilege and silence, lay ahead. And at that precise instant, the door behind her clicked shut. Why won't anyone stop it? Madison Carter's voice cracked as the heavy media room door clicked shut behind her, the echoes of startled board members still ringing in her ears. She pressed her back against the cool wood paneling, clutching the Justice Bloom succulent in one hand and her phone in the other, watching the viewer count tick upward. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 live eyes on a conspiracy unraveling. In that charged moment, she knew she'd crossed a line from teacher to activist, from protector to target. The stakes had never felt higher. Moments before, the entire building had watched the live stream confidential memos, legal threats, votes about her forced transfer, all broadcast unfiltered via Amina's secure feed. The hallway outside pulsed with energy. Phones illuminated faces pressed against glass windows. Students whispered, "It's our turn." Teachers gasped, "Is she in trouble?" Even the janitorial staff lingered, drawn by the gravity of Madison's defiance. She had gambled everything on real-time transparency, trusting that community outrage would outweigh the walker's influence. Now, as the door locked behind her, and silence replaced the buzz, she questioned whether her gamble would yield justice or trigger a backlash powerful enough to destroy her. Drawing a deep breath, Madison let her gaze sweep the dim room. Overhead, the single lamp cast long shadows around the conference table. The cracked hourglass mural above the projector screen looked down like an oracle, its painted sands frozen an unspoken warning that time's verdict was solemn and irreversible. Madison stepped into the center chest, heaving but spine straight. "I won't apologize for telling the truth," she said, voice calm but pounding with adrenaline. "If you want to debate policy, let's debate. But if you think threats will scare me off, remember this fear is a tool I mastered long before I became your teacher." The board members exchanged uneasy glances. "Mrs." Walker's arms tightened around her designer purse. Principal Ramirez cleared his throat and offered Madison a seat, an awkward concession that reeked of reluctant respect. Madison sat, set the succulent on the table, and let its resilient green leaves speak volumes. Even in darkness, justice finds a way to grow. She slid the policy drafts across the table, eyes challenging. "I propose we convene a student-faculty council to overhaul our disciplinary code. Every voice matters, from the valedictorian to the custodial team. No more backroom deals hidden behind closed doors." A tense quiet enveloped the room. Outside, the live stream chat exploded, "Student council change. Now Madison for principal." Madison felt a surge of warmth, not from the flickering lamp, but from the solidarity radiating through every digital notification. But then, unexpected static buzzed through her headphones, an anonymous caller. "They've sent in the lawyers. Expect subpoenas by morning." Madison's chest tightened, her mind racing with legal ramifications. The Walkers wouldn't go quietly. This was their playbook: intimidate litigate, obliterate dissent. Yet, she had anticipated this move. She tapped a notification, pre-approved pro bono counsel standing by. Her quiet nod spoke of meticulous preparation. The twist was clear. Before she ever set foot in Denver, she'd secured allies in law media and community organizing. She wasn't just a teacher. She was a movement unto herself. As the lamp's glow dimmed to a soft halo around her, Madison realized the true battle was just beginning. The conference room's locked door was both shield and cage. Outside, Jefferson High's heartbeat thrummed with expectancy and fear. Madison pressed a finger to the succulent soil. "This is only the first bloom," she whispered. And with that promise hanging in the stale air, she braced herself for the wave of legal battles, policy fights, and community reckonings that would define her legacy and test every ounce of her inner strength. "Did you really think you could win this without another fight?" Madison Carter's voice rang out through the nearly empty auditorium as she faced a sea of students, parents, and teachers gathered for the first community forum since the media room expose. The overhead lights cast a warm glow, illuminating the cracked hourglass mural behind her, its painted sands frozen halfway, as if waiting for the next chapter of justice to unfold. Tonight wasn't about policy drafts or legal threats. It was about the soul of Jefferson High. Just days earlier, Madison had emerged from the locked boardroom victorious, but wary. The Walkers' legal team had unleashed a flurry of subpoenas, forcing her to defend not only her methods, but her very right to teach. Yet every risk she'd taken bolstered her inner steel. She'd drawn strength from Master Kim's mantra: wield truth like a blade, let it cut through fear. Now standing on the stage, her palms gripped the podium as she watched Jasmine Lee live stream the event to thousands of viewers. The same community that once trembled at Ethan Walker's name had begun to rally around Madison's message of accountability and compassion. She began with the hourglass. This symbol reminds us that time never stops, and neither can we. When one grain falls, another rises. Tonight, we choose to be those rising grains. Her words rippled through the audience. Some eyes gleamed with hope, others flickered with doubt. That doubt came in the form of a group of junior girls, seated in the front row, faces half hidden by phone screens. They were the new face of bullying, not the physical intimidation of Ethan's reign, but a web of anonymous posts, doctored images, and exclusionary group chats that left no visible bruises, yet inflicted deep emotional scars. As Madison spoke, Amina Hassan tapped her earpiece reports of a cyber attack on the counseling portal students can't access scheduling. The irony was brutal. A forum meant to heal had been disrupted by the very cruelty they were fighting. Madison paused, mind racing. She signaled Jasmine to cut the live stream for a moment, then whispered, "We anticipated this." With a click, she activated the encrypted network she'd helped deploy, SafeSpace 2.0, a student-led digital platform for anonymous support. The giant screen behind her flickered, then displayed a new interface, a blossoming digital succulent icon symbolizing resilience in the virtual world. "That's our answer," Madison announced, voice steady. "Justice isn't just in the courtroom or the boardroom, it's in every way we protect each other. No algorithm can outsmart our compassion." The room erupted in applause, but Madison knew the battle wasn't over. The junior clique's leader, a sharply dressed girl named Brooke Sinclair, rose from her seat, confidence dripping from every word. "Ms. Carter? Nice speech, but can you stop rumors when they spread faster than your safe space can load?" Laughter rippled among her followers. Madison felt a flash of doubt. Could she truly safeguard every vulnerable student in a digital age defined by cruelty? She drew a slow breath, recalling the succulent's steadfast leaves. "We won't stop," she said softly. "For every rumor, we'll plant truth. For every cut, we'll offer care. And for every attack, we'll rise stronger." As the audience surged to their feet, Madison dared a smile. The screen behind her bloomed into a field of digital succulents, each one a promise of protection. Yet, as the applause swelled, Madison's phone buzzed with a cryptic alert. Personal files leaked. Check your district email. Her stomach sank. In an instant, the fight for justice had opened new wounds, and the next battle was lurking in her own past, ready to surface. "Are you ready to see how deep their roots go?" Madison Carter's whisper cut through the hush of the packed auditorium as she stood beneath the cracked hourglass mural, its painted sands now half buried in ivy that had been painted over during last year's renovation. In the weeks since the cyberbullying forum, Jefferson High had become a battleground of whispers that had now outgrown the school's walls and trickled into local news. Madison pressed her palm against the smooth glass of her smart tablet, which glowed with an email notification titled "Personal History Leak." Heat climbed her neck, not from fear, but from the raw vulnerability of seeing her own past weaponized against her. She inhaled, recalling Master Kim's lesson. To wield truth, you first must embrace your scars. Earlier that morning, she had walked through the hallways, the succulent justice bloom safe in her classroom, its tenacious green reminding her that even in adversity, life perseveres. But now, as screen projections flickered behind her, showing grainy images of her childhood home in Inglewood, Chicago, she knew her personal story was about to be tested in public view. The leaked files painted a narrative of a teacher who'd been disciplined for excessive force in childhood martial arts, sparring matches, a distortion that cast judgment before context. Parents shifted uneasily. Students peered at her with sympathetic yet questioning eyes. The junior clique's Brooke Sinclair sat front row, arms folded, waiting to pounce on Madison's next misstep. Madison steadied her voice, projecting calm authority. "Yes, those were my scars," she began, voice firm. "I learned at a young age that strength without compassion can wound more deeply than any punch. Master Kim taught me that true power is found in choosing to protect, not to dominate." The hourglass mural's painted sands seemed to glint in response as she continued. "I could let these rumors define me, let them sow doubt in our community. Or I can show you that your wounds, no matter how old, can be part of our shared story of healing. The audience leaned forward, and Jasmine Lee's live stream chat exploded with heart emojis and messages. Her truth inspires us all. As Madison spoke, she tapped her tablet, and petals of a digital succulent unfurled across the projection, an interactive art piece co-created with Amina Hassan to symbolize collective resilience. Each student's name glowed under a petal survivors of past bullying former targets, and even those who once wielded cruelty as a weapon. The digital petals hummed with life, offering a stark contrast to the viral rumors that threatened to uproot her credibility. The twist was clear. Madison was using the very medium of attack, leaked data, and digital platforms to create a garden of empowerment. In that charged moment, Principal Ramirez stepped forward with an official statement the school would protect her from defamatory attacks, enact new transparent disciplinary policies, and formally invite Madison to co-chair the district's task force on student well-being. A ripple of applause swept the room, but Madison held up a hand for silence, her gaze softening. "I am honored," she said, voice wavering with genuine emotion. "But this isn't just about me. It's about every person here who's ever felt isolated, shamed, or silenced. My scars may be on display, but they are proof that we all carry wounds, and that together we can transform them into our greatest strength." As the final applause echoed, Madison allowed herself a small, relieved smile. The painted hourglass now seemed to flow again, the ivy peeled back to reveal fresh artwork, a new succulent bud, and the words, "Growth Beyond Time." Yet, as she stepped off the stage, her phone buzzed with another alert, an encrypted message from an anonymous tipster. "There's a new threat quietly brewing beyond this town." Madison paused under the glow of the auditorium lights, feeling both the triumph of this victory and the stirrings of the next challenge. She tucked the succulent keychain into her pocket and whispered, "Our work has just begun."